let's play with some crayons. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today I am going to be trying the Caran Neocolor 1 wax pastels for the first time. So these are basically glorified crayons, and these are their water-resistant brand. Like, they have the Neocolor 2s, and those ones are water-soluble, but this is their water-resistant kind. So let's take a look at them. I have the 40 set. Nice solid tin with their logo on it, and it's that nice Caran red that we all know and love. And here we go. Let's see if I can get them all in there, basically. So, inside it has their fun little stickers, and then their thing with their mission statement saying that they have been accompanying us in our expression of our creativity. Your precious Caran box and their bright colors have been carefully produced by our craftsmen in our unique manufacturer in Geneva. So, let's take a look at them. Now, you will notice I have some of them upside down, and that's because I found out which ones were the most light fast and which ones were considered fugitive out of this line. The ones that I have opposite, and I actually marked them on here myself because there wasn't any marking on them to say what the light fast rating was on individual colors. So I just put a little dot here. This one is only a 1, meaning it's less light fast. And so I noted that and put them upside down in my tin. And there wasn't a whole lot from this set. If you look, it's a 40 set. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there you go. Like, that's really not bad at all. 4 out of 40 that are fugitive. And then the rest are 2s and 3s, which I find to be acceptable light fast. I bought these mainly to see if I could incorporate them with my colored pencils, maybe use them in backgrounds and things like that to try and speed the process. And I thought that this was a pretty good line of colors here. I will link their listing on Blick so you can see what other sets they offer, and they also are available open stock. So if you fall in love with any particular color and you find yourself using it in your work a lot, you can buy it individually. And I should mention, I purchased these myself. This is not sponsored by Caran in any way. This is 100% my own opinion. I've just been wanting to try these for a while. So, I like this set already because there's a good amount of like landscape colors, a good amount of sky colors. Only one of I was a little sad that this one was fugitive because I think that would be pretty in skies, but that's okay. I got plenty of others to use. But yeah, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this just yet. I need to figure out what kind of piece I'm going to do. Probably either a landscape or a still life. And I'm going to do that in my, I just have like a cold press watercolor sketchbook that I use. This has a little bit of paint on it already from a previous, I don't even know, like it's a sketchbook so it gets messy. I think that I'm just going to leave it and see if these can go over it because I kind of want to test the opacity. Let's get to playing with some crayons. Okay, it looks like I lied to you because there was one more thing I wanted to do before we got to working with an actual project. This is the Faber-Castell Mixed Media Pad in black. I just want to see how opaque some of these colors are. I'm going to try... This one is one of the ones that's not really particularly light fast, but I want to see how well... That is beautiful. I might have to do a piece on black paper down the line. Let me know if that's something that you're interested in seeing. Because they do show up pretty well on this black paper. I'm pretty impressed with that. Let me see. Obviously, the darker colors aren't going to show up as well, but that's still pretty good. And the black obviously blends in, but I can layer them. So they're pretty opaque, and I like that a lot. So let's finally actually get down to doing a project. Okay, so now I am starting with my project. I'm actually just doing a quick little freehand sketch. Like I said, I am using cold press watercolor paper, and I am going to be looking at a photo that I took a while ago of some cherries. and I'm not worried about them being perfectly shaped. Obviously, I'm kind of looking at proportions and the angles that the cherries are at, but cherries are actually a really great thing to draw fruit in general, because it doesn't have to be perfect, but it will still kind of give you an idea of the materials you're working with. So if you're trying a new material, I highly recommend doing a still life, doing fruit, something like that, or even something from nature like leaves, something that doesn't have to be entirely perfect because it's natural. And this definitely fit the bill for me. The other thing that I was looking for in a reference was something that I could incorporate good contrasting colors in. I knew I could bring in some greens and things like that for the shadows because I wanted to be able to try different colors. But also the main thing I was looking at was values, because you can do realism in any type of material as long as you have the right values. And so that was the main thing that I was looking at for here. I wanted to have a full value range, so that way there, when I tested these out, I could see the range that I could get within this product. I wanted to make sure that the darks were dark enough in the crayons and the lights were light enough. And that definitely was perfect in this project. So, a couple things. I want to definitely try these on different surfaces. I think that they're going to be really versatile for many different kinds of surfaces. I actually saw online somebody drew on terracotta pots with them. I think that looks really interesting, but also I want to try them on a smoother paper. I used this paper because I knew it would have a lot of tooth, but at the same time, I felt like I was fighting the tooth. The tooth and the crayon texture, you know, like if you're coloring just with crayons, how it gets that texture, they kind of matched. And so it was like it was a little bit of an uphill battle, but at the same time, I do think the texture helped in the fact that it gave me enough room to create the layers I wanted. However, I do want to try these since they're technically a wax pastel. I would like to try them sometime on either pastel board or pastel mat or even the Luxe Archival sanded paper, all of the above. And I also want to try it on some hot press watercolor paper down the line as well. So you'll see more pieces from me with these. But for just a sketchbook, like a watercolor sketchbook sketch, I am very happy with how this came out. So let's talk a little bit more about the crayons themselves. I mentioned to you earlier that only 4 of them were fugitive. I was looking into it, and I had gone according to the Lightfast listings that were on the Blick site. I had forgotten where I had gotten the Lightfast listings, but I always like to save any PDFs that have color charts or any information I find online about Lightfastness in a file folder. So I was looking through my file folder to find out where I had looked to get my Lightfast information, and I found a file that I had created that was the Blick Lightfast ratings, or at least the ratings that were listed on the Blick website for these and the Neocolor 2s. And that's where I was getting my Lightfast ratings. Well, I went and I found the color chart on the Caran website, which I'm wondering if that wasn't there when I was initially looking into these, because normally that's the first place I look. And it looks like only 2 of them, according to them, are fugitive. Now, whenever I have more than one source of Lightfast ratings, I tend to be on the cautious side. And since one of my sources cited that 4 of them were fugitive, I don't want to chance it, so I'm still not going to use those. But it is interesting to note that according to Caran, only 2 of them have a 1-star for Lightfast rating. So that's something to keep in mind. I will link the color chart in the description below from Caran so you can see that. And also, I'm going to be linking the Blick listing for these in the description below. So that way there you can, if you do decide to purchase them, you can see how much they cost and everything else. And you'll be able to access that Lightfast information there as well. So I'm looking at the crayons right now, and this was something that I meant to go over in my intro. Because normally when I do an intro for any type of review, I like to show you the product and kind of describe it. And so the things that are written on there, there's no Lightfast information written on the crayons themselves, as I mentioned. But they do have the color name, and they also have a reorder number, which is really convenient. And the cool thing about these is you can sharpen them. You can either use a craft knife to sharpen them, or you can use a handheld sharpener, usually the ones that, like the little comb sharpeners, the little metal sharpeners that you get that have the skinny side and the fat side. You can use the fat side to sharpen these. And the paper itself has these little pull tabs that you can pull. So that way there you can unwrap the paper to sharpen. You can sharpen as far back as possible that way. So I thought that was really convenient, but also I recommend keeping your paper because if you have fallen in love with a color enough to use it up to the point where you have to peel the whole paper off, you're probably going to want to have that reorder number and that color number so that you know which color you want. Now I think there's 50 in the line, but I think the biggest set available is 40, if I remember right. I could be incorrect there, but when I was looking at the color chart on Caran, I saw that they had 50 in their line. However, on Blick, the largest set available is the 40 set. So it's not a whole lot of colors that could be too confusing to try and reorder. However, you know, just to be on top of things, it wouldn't hurt to keep the paper either in your sketchbook or maybe just kind of have a little place in the studio to keep that stuff until you reorder your color. These are a pricey item, and right now I don't want to speak to specific prices because they're subject to change. Caran is an artist grade company. They might have some studio grade things, but for the most part, they are a pricier company of the companies that are out there. So if you are a hobbyist, there may be other alternatives on the market that you might want to try first. I love these. I do think they're very pigmented. I had a great time working with them. However, if you're, like I said, if you're a hobbyist or if you're on a budget, this may not be the product for you. However, if you are somebody who is looking to use this medium in a serious manner where you might be making money off it, you really can't beat the light fast ratings, and they are very, very pigmented, and they are a high quality item. I enjoyed working with them. They were comfortable in the hand, and I was actually very surprised because I use a lot of pressure that I didn't break any of them. Also, a little seems to go a long way. Like, I really went ham on some of these reds, and I didn't use up a whole lot of any given color. The Carmen is the one that I use the most for the cherries, and so that's a little bit smaller than the rest of them now that I'm looking in the set. But for the most part, I'm very surprised. Even the black, I use the black a lot. I am really happy with how little I used up. So let's talk about blending. You're going to see me using different types of blending here. The main way that I did a lot of the blending was I used a Prismacolor colorless blending pencil because these are wax-based, and so this will burnish it in. But I also had tried some alcohol because rubbing alcohol will slightly blend out things like colored pencils. And it worked a little bit as long as there were enough layers. And before I had gotten started, I had actually done a couple test swatches where I used the Holbein Melts colored pencil blender. And I had also tried some OMS. And on my swatches, neither one of those things seemed to work very well. It didn't really budge it very much, didn't move the pigment at all. And so I was very surprised with that. However, I did think maybe I just didn't have enough pigment on the paper. And so when I came back later on, after I had used the alcohol and saw that that worked mildly, I did try the Holbein's Melts again. It didn't seem to do much. However, odorless mineral spirits did seem to work really well. Because I had actually, after I had done my test swatch and the odorless mineral spirits didn't work on the swatch, I'm like, there's something wrong here. Because odorless mineral spirits, they'll melt the walls on your house. Like, they melt pigment really easily. And so I was like very, very surprised that the odorless mineral spirits hadn't worked. And so I kind of looked it up online to see if other people were using odorless mineral spirits with these, because that was going to be pretty much my go-to, knowing that they work so well with oil paint and colored pencils and other media out there. And when I came across the video by Caran, and the guy was pretty much like painting with these. He made it look like they were the Neocolor 2s, when in actuality, he was using, I think, turpentine essence, which odorless mineral spirits is very similar. And so I'm like, okay, I got to try the OMS again. And I did, and it worked much better once I had a lot of layers on. And so that's something to keep in mind. Down the line, I want to get away from using odorless mineral spirits just because they are poisonous. Even though they're odorless, they are still poisonous. And so I want to find some less poisonous ways to work with things. So that's why I've been using my melts for colored pencils a lot more. And I'm trying to look into ways of thinning my paint when using oil paints. And so I'm looking into getting lavender spike oil or something like that down the line. And I'm going to try that when I get it as well and see if that blends these and colored pencils, just to see what I can work with. And so I'll keep you posted on that. But for now, the odorless mineral spirits fit the bill. Rubbing alcohol worked mildly well. And so that, you know, that's something to keep in mind when you want to blend. However, I feel like if I was on a smoother surface, I could have just used the crayons themselves to do the majority of the blending. And I could have here too, but I was already burnishing pretty hard. My hand was getting tired because I was fighting that tooth. But these really, it is ideal to have some tooth so that you can layer really well. But overall, I had a really good time with these. I am very, very pleasantly surprised with how this came out. So who says that crayons are just for kids? Because these certainly aren't. I'm very excited about this. One of my favorite things to do is to take items that most people wouldn't think could be used for realism and do something realistic with them. And I really didn't expect this to come out as realistically as it did, but I really tried to use my experience with colored pencils because they're just chunky colored pencils without any type of wood around them. That's essentially what these are. A little bit softer maybe, but they definitely, these were a lot of fun. I think they'll be great for backgrounds with colored pencil. They'll be good to combine with colored pencil. I did have a hard time layering on top with colored pencil once I had so many layers down, but that's to be expected. Eventually, you are burnishing the paper. There's not going to be as much tooth. It's going to be a little bit harder. But I did use some colored pencils in certain spots because I wanted to test it out. I used my polychromos, which are oil-based, and a little bit harder. And I also had used my Derwent Drawing Chinese White, which is a little bit softer, because I wanted to see how the soft and hard pencils worked with it, and they both worked pretty well. I used my pencil for details in the stem, and then I tried to use some of that white to help kind of burnish out some of the highlights and to bring finer highlights in, just to see if I could use it as far as the white pencil goes, and that worked pretty well. Not as well as I was expecting for that pencil, because that Derwent Chinese White is my go-to white pencil, and it is a beast, and it usually will run right over anything. And so it wasn't as good as I expected, but it was still pretty well. Like, I can't wait to try this maybe on sanded paper, where I can get a lot more layers. I'm definitely going to try that down the line on the Luxe Archival. Like I said, I want to try it on many different surfaces. This may not have been an ideal surface, but it had the tooth that I needed, and I really didn't want to get into something that was too huge of a project. I really just wanted to get the feel for these, and I think I accomplished that. So I'll definitely try it with other things. But I do recommend these if you are somebody who wants to try something different and, you know, like step out of your comfort zone maybe, or maybe if you're looking for quicker ways. I also love their Neocolor 2s, which are water soluble. Those work like a dream. Very similar to this, but you can wet them down with water. And I think those might be a little bit softer. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. Have you ever tried these or something like it? Let me know in the comments below. This kind of makes me want to try Crayola again. Like, these are definitely more pigmented than Crayolas, and they're a little bit softer and blend more easily, but this kind of makes me want to try, like, doing a realistic picture with Crayola crayons, because I just think it would be kind of rad to do and kind of fun. I actually did use quite a few colors here, and it's hard to tell because this seems like it would be a monochromatic picture, but I used obviously a lot of the reds, but I pulled in some yellows, I pulled in some blues for the highlights and for the reflected areas, I pulled in a few browns, and a lot of purples, and some grays, and obviously black. And of course the black I didn't use on its own, I mixed it with the reds and it worked really well. This is waxy, but the wax, like, I'm not seeing too much wax bloom, which is exciting. Like, you're going to have some because it's wax. Like, these are literally made from wax. But it's still saturated enough. Like, the colors are still saturated enough, and they have a nice sheen to them. I love the way the drawing feels now. In some ways, I kind of do wish I had done it on a different paper, just because, like, it's in my sketchbook now, but I might take it out and sell it anyway. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going to sell it. I might sell prints. I'm very excited. I kind of wish I had done an 8x10 because I have a series going with fruit, and this reference photo was originally going to be part of that, though I wasn't stoked about the reference photo. But now that this is done, I'm like, I should have done it as an 8x10. It's still part of the series, but it would just, you know, be a little bit different hanging beside the series. Although I can't say much because the series started in acrylic and the 2 main paintings from that series are humongous. So I guess the series really isn't perfectly in line with one another anyway. So it still fits in with my other fruit paintings. But definitely excited with how it came out. And I had a lot of fun with it. There were some times when I struggled because I was afraid that I had overworked the surface a little bit. And I did erase down and go back to the surface, and I was still able to layer them up, even though the tooth of the paper was matted down a little bit. So I found these to be very versatile in that aspect. I was still able to fix my mistakes. I used a precision eraser by Faber-Castell. I also had just like a regular white eraser. I think it was also by Faber-Castell. And my electric eraser. And that worked pretty well. It does take a lot. It takes a lot of effort to erase because layers go down so quickly with this. But I definitely was able to not erase down to the white, but I was able to at least get it to the point where I could fix my mistakes, and I was happy about that. But yeah, so here it is. This is my final piece. I hope that you like this. Like I said, I recommend these if you have it in your budget. I'll put it that way. If you have it in your budget, you want to try something new, you want to have something as a tool that you can put in the background for your colored pencil drawings to quicken the process or something like that, definitely love them a lot. They're a lot of fun, and I will be using them again in the future. If you don't have the budget, there are other budget brands out there. You can kind of look into them, but the light fastness and all that, great product. All right, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. You have a great day.